Boycott Kellogg's. What are we doing? I'm Molly. I'm a gut health dietitian, and I'm going to unpack with you why we are boycotting Kellogg's, what happened, and why it matters. So the Food Babe and 1,000 people went up to Michigan, and they presented at the Kellogg's headquarters 400,000 signatures saying, can you please change this for us? And Kellogg's wouldn't see them. They had a sign that said, get off my lawn. They sent out a security guard. The security guard said, I'm not affiliated with the company, but I'll deliver your signatures. And that was it. And, it's been highly publicized since then. So if you haven't seen it, it's going to be very easy to find on the internet. Why do we even want this to happen? First of all, dyes. So you've got to think about it this way. Nutrition research is sponsored generally by companies that are producing food or by the government, like to see how food affects our health and that sort of thing, or then also by independent people. But it's really expensive to do research, and it's difficult because whenever we're looking at a cohort or a group of people, so in this case, it would be a group of people who are eating Kellogg's Froot Loops for a long period of time, or people that are eating red dye, blue dye, yellow dye, and there are numbers, but I don't have anything in front of me, so I'm just saying dye, but there are specific numbers. Then we have to look at, okay, this person ate this many, parts per million of red dye for this many years, and they got cancer. And that's how we figure it out. So first of all, we can't just say seed oils are inflammatory and then leave it at that. We have to follow a group of people for a long time and see what happens after they eat the seed oils, which is kind of a bummer because then you're putting that, you have to find people who are already doing it, because you wouldn't want to ask someone to change their habits and do something that is knowingly unhealthy. You know what I mean? So anyway, lot of nuances with nutrition research. Does that mean that it's valid? Yes. Most of the time. You always want to look at the end of the article, scroll all the way down to the bottom, see if the authors have anything to disclose. So if we read a study saying food dye is good for kids and it's sponsored by Kellogg's, we maybe don't believe that study. You know what I mean? If we read a study saying dairy is great for everyone and it's sponsored by American dairy farmers or the USDA, we maybe look for others that support it, okay? Not that I don't trust the USDA, but I am pissed at them. I mean, I think it's ridiculous what's happening in the United States with our food. And I just I get that there's a gain, and I get that we are feeding lots of people, but come on, you know what I mean? I think we can all agree that things could be changed, and they probably wouldn't be that expensive given the burden of the healthcare dollars that have to get put in on the other side, if that makes sense. So there's a lot that needs to change in the United States. Now, red dye number 40 has been proven in research to show that it causes hyperactivity. That's one of the big ones, is behavioral changes and hyperactivity in children that after they consume it. So you wouldn't necessarily want to eat that before you go sit in school for 8 hours when you're not at an age or mental capacity to really be able to do that anyway, in my opinion. I never was. Surprised I can now. Blue dye is kind of a forever chemical. It stays in your body kind of forever, and it does cause leaky gut. So those intestinal cells are tight together like this, tight junctions. They get pulled apart by a lot of things, okay? It's not just blue dye, but that's one of the contributing factors, and we know that for a fact. So we wouldn't want to really be eating large quantities of it. And BHT is a preservative that is a known carcinogen. So we're looking at multiple things in the cereal that are either known to cause cancer, known to cause behavioral changes, or known to trigger allergies and hypersensitivities in these kids. I mean, we ask why are more kids having peanut allergies and that sort of thing. I'd like to see a graph of when we started jacking food dye into everything, including all the cold medicine, and see a graph of people's allergies. So those are things to remember, okay? So that's why we don't want those ingredients in our food. Now, why won't they take them out? Why won't they talk to the public when they know this is going to be hyper viral and it's going to be a huge deal? I don't know. Obviously cost, but additionally, it's not fair to the United States people. Now, all the comments that I'm seeing on these posts. So she's posting a lot of stuff about how she went and all the videos, and they're really well made and it's wonderful content. I highly recommend that you check out the Food Babe. But people are commenting, just don't buy it. And so there are two things to that. First of all, I am a dietitian, and we learn a lot in school for dietetics, not, in my opinion, enough, which is why I'm getting my doctorate in integrative and functional nutrition, but definitely quite a bit. And the biggest thing is food security. So there are places in the United States all over the place where it's called a food desert, and there's no grocery stores around that have like a Publix or a Albertsons or a Hannaford. They don't have something like that. All they have is like a dollar store or a gas station. And there are pharmacy deserts as well now, more and more. So just think about, in an underserved area where there aren't a lot of cars, not everybody has a car, and then you can't really get fresh food. So you're kind of stuck with at the dollar store. Absolutely, many people do not have the choice to not buy Kellogg's cereal. And Froot Loops isn't the only example of this. There's a million different cereals by all the brands that are similar. So just keep that in mind. But the other thing is that when we think about if a cereal doesn't get purchased by people in a regular grocery store, or what many of us commonly think of as a grocery store, then it gets closer and closer to the expiration date. And that's when it heads to the dollar store. Now, when the dollar store or the grocery store get too close to the expiration date, that's when it heads to the food bank. And so then people they go to the food bank, and what's there is what they're going to eat. So they don't have a choice. And I think it's really important for us to remember that when you're writing a comment on the internet, you've got to think about the larger population. And like, if Froot Loops is the only food available to a child before they go to school because they're eating from a food bank, or because they're eating from a deserted area that only has a Dollar General, then that's what they're going to eat. And not everyone has a luxury to buy an $8 box of cereal or a $15 box of cereal, or, make their own granola with very expensive nuts and that kind of thing. So, and olive oil, these are really very luxurious products. So I want you to remember that this isn't just, we don't have to buy it because, I would never feed my kids that trash. Your kids hear you say that, I would never feed you that trash. And then they develop kind of an unconscious bias against people who do eat those things, or who do bring something like that for their, bring your own breakfast to school or whatever it is. And the last thing I want to say is that marketing, you have fallen for an Instagram ad. I know you have, that we've purchased some bodysuit or some pair of pants or whatever it is that was targeted directly to you. Think about the kids. So they're watching these shows and they're being super targeted, just like you were, for these cereals. And I think if I was a mother, which I'm not, no thank you, there are days that if my dog was acting a fool and I was trying to get somewhere and the dog would not stop acting a fool, I would be like, fine, just eat the Froot Loops. You know what I mean? I think that is probably a pretty relatable state of mind. So at some point you may or may not give in and say, just eat the Froot Loops. No kid should ever be eating that. And it shouldn't be fair that that's the only option. We shouldn't have to go to Whole Foods and get the Whole Foods Froot Loops that are like the UK Froot Loops for $5 more. I just think that is a real shame, and it makes me sad. And I'm so happy to see community activists that are working towards a healthier America for everybody, because it's not about how many thousands of dollars a month you personally can spend at the grocery store or cannot. It's about what does everyone need as a community, and how can we come together and support each other as a community, even if we don't agree with something, because somebody somewhere is going to need to eat that. Thank God it's there for them to eat. Does that make sense? I hope this video helps you to understand why we wouldn't want food dye in our general food supply, and why I would encourage you to be a little more mindful when you're commenting on something that you think is dumb or seems silly or seems like an easy choice, because for everyone it's not an easy choice, right? Thanks for coming by Women's Gut Health this Monday. New episodes every Monday. Check the show notes for the link to the video. Bye.